Hello, welcome to the Old Man Orange Podcast. I'm Spencer Scott Holmes.
And I'm Ryan Dunigan.
We're coming at you with a little movie review of a film that's, kind of a little modern day classic. In fact, when I've been thinking about it more and more, this could be possibly what I think might be the greatest movie of the 2010s. And that's what we're talking about today is The Nice Guys, 2016, if you're wondering.
Well, when it came out, we talked about it. I remember it was on my movie of the year it came out. I remember.
Same here.
I don't know if we actually sat down and had like not in like an episode where we talked about it in length, but maybe within that top 10 countdown we have. So this might be retreading old water, but it's movie's over 10 years old by now, so we're almost 10 years old. Just crazy when you fucking think about it. But
boy, I remember just singing in the theaters not that long ago.
I remember I saw it with Marley in San Francisco at the 4-Star Theater, like a few blocks away from my apartment. So yeah, we went to Bob's Burgers right after. Bill's Cafe, not Bob's Burgers, it's a different thing. Bill's Cafe across the street. Yeah, so
I like how it's like it's the 4-star theater, not 5 stars. Don't get your hopes too far up.
Well, it depends on their grading scale. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true. Leonard Maltin style, you only go to 4.
It was one of those theaters that had three theaters. It had like this big, beautiful, like old school retro theater, which you think of. It had a smaller theater that was maintained, but like not as grand, but smaller one. And then it had a little like taxi driver jerk off theater, So it was just like almost like almost like a big TV was in there. Like, okay, cool. That's where like the movies, like, look, no one's like 5 people are showing up this animated French film. We can just throw it on that screen, But anyway, that's where we saw it.
That's like that Brendan Theater in Modesto that we used to always go to. There's like the George Lucas Theater. And for the longest time, because every movie we went to go see down there was a movie you couldn't see anywhere else. So it was like Cinema 20 is what you were in. And it was just like this little teeny one. There was almost never anybody else in there because nobody else was going to go see Legend of Chun-Li or something like that, But I remember that for the longest time, I used to think that all the screenings were like that size. And then one day I saw like a normal movie and a normal screening. I was like, geez, this thing's humongous. I thought there were all these small ass rooms.
Well, that theater was small, but trust me, this one was smaller. This was like almost like a little smaller. This is going to be, people are like, I tuned in for Nice Guys, not to hear you guys like reminisce about movie theaters from like fucking 10 years ago and back. But to give context for you and people that in the area that might listen to the show, your area, this was smaller than that theater in Angels Camp because they have that small little tiny, like this was smaller than that. So
it was smaller than that because that one at Angels Camp I think is only like 20 or 25 seats for that small screening room.
Well, this was like 3 like rows of 3. Yeah, rows of 3.
It's like riding in Star Tours.
Yeah, it was kind of like it was basically Star Tours. Star Tours. Really,
but if there was just one ride, not like whatever they got there, like 10 or whatever doors you can get into.
It was basically Star Tours, but more narrow. We just put it like that. Anyway, beyond that, good theater. And that's where I saw the movie. But not that theater. I saw it on the big screen. But the thing with this movie is when I first saw it, it was like I knew I really liked it. I liked it a lot. Then it's one of those movies as time went on, like, oh, that's a really good movie. I really like it. Yeah. And then it's one of those movies just kind of snuck up on you. It almost took me like 5 to 10 years. It almost took me like 10 years to realize, like, I think this might be actually one of my favorite movies, like somewhere within my top 10 favorite movies. I think this might be in there because every time I watch it, it's one of those movies you could just put it on for comfort. But sometimes there's movies that like, it's not the best movie, but at the exact same time, it just brings you a lot of joy. But then there's those things where it brings you that same amount of joy, but you can't find really anything wrong with it. Maybe there's like one weird line delivery somewhere, maybe, but beyond that, like no complaints about the movie at all, and that's what this movie is for me.
Yeah, no, I kind of agree a lot there with you because it's one of those ones I liked it a lot the first time I saw it. I mean, I definitely was like, oh, this is great. I'm going to buy it. So, of course, I bought it on Blu-ray when it came out, and I've watched it a couple times since. This may have been my 4th or 5th time watching this one. And it does. I'll say it. It does each time gets even better. It's like I already like it a lot as is, but I almost think it's close to a perfect movie because I really can't think of anything I don't like about it. I think it's so dialed in. And really, in this last watching, I really kind of think about it. I'm like, this possibly could be my personal favorite movie of 2010s. I mean, I'd have to kind of like sit down and compare and contrast some movies together, but boy, is this one good. And it's one of those movies too that when I was thinking about it more, is glad it came out at the time it did, because I feel like this movie was like it was in this weird flow change state because it's 2016, but it's kind of one of those movies that, and I know that like they've been working on it since like 2005 or something earlier. Like Shane Black really was trying to get this together for a while, and it had a hard time. But the thing is, I feel like if this movie came out like even just 2 years later, something like that, it might have had a hard time getting greenlit because it is kind of, it takes place in '77, but it plays out like an old school movie at the same time too. So it's probably going to be, once we got to the softer era, it's a little bit more offensive. Like it felt like it needed to be in that late 2000s, early 2010s, when that period where I used to always say that like it didn't matter what action movie you went to, you could go to a comedy movie and you were guaranteed good violence. You know, it was just like it was not a question anymore. They didn't have to censor movies and so on. But then when you get to about the mid 2010s, we kind of get back to a PG-13 era where everybody's trying to do action movies almost for the whole family and so on like that. You know, perfect example is like Expendables 3 is always, you look at the difference between 2 to 3, it's kind of a radical change, but that happens to a lot of other movies where they're like, let's tone it back. Let's go back to that PG-13 area. Let's make things a little bit more like easy. Let's round those edges a bit. And Nice Guys comes in, and not only is it funny, but it's kind of brutal. It comes in right in the very beginning, like, are you in or are you out? You know, with that scene where that kid's like, oh, I'm going to go in my dad's room and find the Duty magazine. And then, you know, as he goes to do that, he sees this Miss Meadows lady in there. And then next thing you know, this car crash comes down the hill and everything like that. And there's a big old explosion, and she's just laying out there full naked, like literally in like the first 5 minutes and so on like that, bleeding out and so on. And it's like, here's your movie. Well, let's get this detective romp going.
Well, to go on what you said, and this is not to like, you know, try to like go to blows like just 5 minutes into the episode or whatever, but I don't think that I know what you mean when you say like you think things have gotten a little softer, but in all honesty, I think certain things have gotten softer, because if you've looked at a lot of movies that have come out recently, I think a lot of movies are just as hard-hitting or even more hard-hitting than like before 2010s. I just think after COVID, not as much went to theaters, and when things would go to theaters were like a lot, not everything, but a lot of like PG-13 Marvel style or big IP PG-13 and lower. Because when I think about it and I look down, I do see a lot of movies that are like maybe not like, I see what you mean about like this kind of movie, because it is kind of like a 70s style buddy cop movie. In those we don't get as much, but we do get like, I think I've seen movies just as violent or just as gritty as this, but they're not the same type of like funny, like Rush Hour. The Rush Hour is PG-13, but like Rush Hour-esque or 48 Hours or Lethal Weapon or something like that, because they've all been done to death. But even though there's still room for good ones, this is case in point. And the thing about this one is it is very much like a Lethal Weapon 48 Hours type of movie, especially because Shane Black wrote it and directed it. But at the exact same time, it really zags when you think it's going to zig. It really, and then it also, this is the guy who kind of created that formula more or less, or at least fine-tuned it in the 80s, and now he's making the movie he always wanted to make, and it's almost kind of like a collection of like Shane Black. It's kind of like a Shane Black Napoleon kind of what? Like a Shane Black greatest hit.
Yeah, of all his, I think it is like the fusion of all. It really is his best work. In my
even that opening with Lethal Weapon, the opening with the girl.
Yeah, exactly. So it kind of hits all. It comes together so perfectly and everything like that, and you know, just all his elements that he's ever kind of had that you like throughout the years and the previous movies he's done. It's just like, here it is. It's dialed in. Both our two main characters, Jared Butler and Ryan Gosling, both like kill it as like the two main characters the whole time. And the fact that you have these guys that it's called The Nice Guys, but both these guys really aren't the greatest people in the world, especially even Ryan Gosling. You know, he's trying, but like he's just the total fuck up the whole time, you know, literally falls ass backwards into things and so on like that, but somehow, some way is able to get by. Where you got Gerald Butler, who's a little bit more like coherent and everything like that, but he's
not Gerald
just
Butler, Russell Crowe.
Or Russell Crowe, my bad. Why can I say Gerald Butler? Fucking,
he does look
just
like
watched this movie like a week and a half ago. I just already forgot. But yeah, Russell Crowe. Those guys always kind of feel like they're like many actors. There's always those two that you can almost interchange, you know, the roles, and you'd feel like, you know, if you had Russell Crowe in 300, you'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. Even if you had Gerald Butler in Gladiator, you'd be like, yeah, okay, I can get that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I also feel like because Russell Crowe was like the athletic, good-looking guy who did action movies, but also did like high art, like dramas and whatnot, like Academy Award-winning shit. Mm-hmm. And he did just at this point where he's just like, he apparently wanted to put on weight. I'm not sure what was the first movie it was. I want to say there may have been a movie before this, but like I want to say he wanted to put on a lot of weight for Body of Lies, the Ridley Scott movie where he's like a corrupt CIA agent. Mm-hmm. And maybe he was like, oh, being fat is so much fucking better than being like cut and trim all the fucking time. And by then he probably didn't take his shirt off as in many movies, but still, I think that kind of like, and then they like, you know, Nice Guys, he's like, oh, reason to be just some big, bulky fucking, yeah, fuck it, but not bulky, but big, just big fat guy getting, sure, fuck it, let's do it. And the thing about him is he is like this, I do like the dynamic because it is kind of like, you know, you have the bruiser and you have the bruiser and you have the detective, and somehow the bruiser is the guy who's more like the straight man, and he's the one who's actually a little bit more street smart, and he's the one who's also more like has more of a moral center, kind of keeps everything running properly.
Yeah. How was that?
That was my dog running down the stairs.
Oh, it always just sounds like something just fell down the stairs.
You see my lack of reaction, so it's just kind of if I knew something was serious, like holy fuck, but no, it's just my dog, just like this fucking sack of fur, just like flopping or wiping down the. Yeah, she's right here, so don't worry, everything's good. Yeah, that pause.
Yeah,
like,
no.
Shit, did I say something? Fuck.
But no. The dynamic's really great, and I love the way it kind of plays out. You know, you have that kind of change of characters right there. And then Russell Crowe, like, I even think of it like more like once he gets to that husky age where he gets to be that guy, it's not like we wouldn't say like he's fat, like he's like, oh man, he got like Brendan Fraser big or something like that. You know, it's more just he gets this husky thing, but it almost works for him to be more intimidating in a sense, you know? It's like, oh, this guy's just going to mangle some people up. You know what I mean?
Well, aside from me, one of my favorite movies, this is one of my favorite Russell Crowe's, just because this role, I think, is perfect for him. And I think that, like, I just like Jack Healy a lot. He's just a really good character. And he's not really even a great guy because he's still shaking down, like, Margaret Qualley for, like, what, $17 or something like that? So, like, you know, it's like he's not perfect, but that's the thing I like about Shane Black characters is a lot of times there's like enough to kind of make you find them interesting, but there's definitely enough to be they're flawed. Like the idea, like for instance, Lethal Weapon, like Murtaugh, like he's a good cop, but he's not really doing the best job he can do at first because he's 3 days to retirement. He just wants to get the fuck out of there. Come on, you know, like why does he did his time? Like that's the straight man. That's the good guy of the movie. He's the guy who doesn't want to do his job, you know. So
yeah. The guy who's like, hey, I put in years, and at this point now, I just literally am just gonna like go through the motions and get this done. And of course, they put me with the guy who's suicidal.
Yeah, and you in his situation, you get it, but at the exact same time as, you know, like that's the thing is that's the straight man, that's the good cop in that, you know. And in this, you got the guy who's like, he's the guy you immediately get endeared to him because you see him beating up like a pedophile, but then later it's just like you see him shaking down like a girl, like you're $10 short, you want, you know, like just like that kind of shit, you know. So But like even Ryan
Well,
Gosling,
I get it. That's just business right there. You know what I mean? If you gave everybody a discount, and let them get by, and not like Russell Crowe's really making it great here at this job. It's like he's just kind of borderline getting by with these, like almost like helping high school girls out beat up their like stalking boyfriends.
well, I understand it, but that scene is put there as a point to illustrate that he's not completely. I mean, I understand it, but like he's there to point out that he's not as like noble or altruistic, because you see this girl kind of like she's on the verge of tears, she's all stressed out, and he's like, yeah, it's great. 10 more bucks or whatever, you know what I mean? And then like, so it's just, and he's kind of cold about it. So the idea like, but he wants to do good. This is just the best way he knows how to. And then, Ryan Gosling, which I think this is one of his best roles, because a lot of times he is just the stoic pretty boy, but I like him seeing like, basically this like fuck up who pulls from Ava and Costello, and just like, the thing is, deep down, he is a good detective, but you have to like work through like 15 layers of fuck up before the good detective comes out and actually does the thing that pushes the plot forward, or does the thing that makes him find a thing. Because a lot of times it is him that finds the thing that pushes them forward, or he figures it out, but it's after how many other fucking things they had to go through before that happens.
Well, and even his character, when they kind of introduced Ryan Gosling, so, he's the official detective. He's got the license. So it's almost like he went to, in a sense, detective school, hasn't taken the class, and got all that kind of stuff there. He's the legal one in all of this. He's actually got a bit of money and so on comparatively to Russell Crowe. But he's kind of in a somewhat of a way like a partial con artist. And not necessarily like he's trying to. It just kind of happens this way. Like he'll kind of do cases for real old ladies where he's telling them what the truth is, but they just don't believe it. So he takes the money anyways, because once again, he's not rich either enough. So he's going to need it. And so he's doing kind of almost bogus cases to get by and so on in this process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And even his character, just like the small things, like you see him try to do the thing you see, and like the type of things in like a lot of like detective movies or hard-boiled stuff where he's trying to do the slick thing, but it always backfires. He tries to pay a guy off with like asking for like personal details on like the Margaret Qualley character he's looking for. And he tries to offer the guy money. He like makes a little like origami t-shirt out of like this, however much money it was, I don't remember. And the guy pulls out like, that's nice, you made that? Yeah, I made this. It's a baseball bat. And he just gets the fuck out. And then later that night he goes there, he tries to break in, but he does not like wrap like this shirt or whatever around his wrist fast enough, so he like slits and cuts an artery. He's like, oh fuck like everything he does just always blows up in his fucking face.
Yeah, exactly. So he's just the total fuck up. He's also an alcoholic, like in a sense, a raging alcoholic. He's always drinking the whole time. Like he's getting loaded, and that's not helping the situation for the most part. Yeah, his wife died, and he's got a daughter, and then the daughter's the third character in this one too. And you know what it kind of reminds me a lot of, where it's like you have a good kid character is what's that Ridley Scott movie? It's got Nicolas Cage in it.
Matchstick Men.
Matchstick Men, yeah. Another kind of in a similar vein as this one, but that's another one too where it's got like the good kid character in it that like you're glad's kind of along for the ride and makes it more fun and says some funny witty dialogue and so on like that. And so in a sense, it's like he's a decent enough father because he takes care of her, but at the same time, he's also, once again, an alcoholic. He's passed out like every night. He's practically barely holding on in a sense. Where the Russell Crowe character, on the other hand, is, even though he is kind of the illegal, under the table crime fighter in a sense, he's definitely more once again, the straight man. He's more calm and collective. He's got things together and so on like that. But they're just dynamic together. It's fantastic.
Yeah. Well, it's also like she also is kind of the things that's kind of keeping Russell Crowe in check to some extent, because he sees like this girl who kind of sees the best in everybody. And he's like, shit, I kind of need to step up my game. and the dad is kind of like basically going off her goodwill, but even she's kind of like done with it, because there's a part where she like is honest. He's like, am I a bad person? She's like, yes, you're a fucking horrible person. Like, okay, I just had to check, just drive. And the reason why she's the driver is because he's too fucked up to drive anywhere. He's too incompetent. And like the idea that if he could just not drink, he probably would be a better detective. And the whole thing is where they cross that after the death of this porn star. More spoilers ahead. I know I'm assuming you already probably know that. Spoilers. After the death of this porn star, the aunt of the porn star hires Ryan Gosling's character to go find, because she thinks she's still alive. But there's a girl who was there. There was Margaret Qualley that she saw, and he's looking for her. But then, like, Russell Crowe was hired by Margaret Qualley to keep people off her back. So that's where they meet. And the idea of when they first meet, it's like some of the small details. Like, this didn't need to happen because they don't really have a big effect on the story, but it says a lot about their characterization. Like, Russell Crowe forgot to bring his brass knuckles with him. So you see him like adapt quickly. Like, rather than using his usual brass knuckles and all that kind of stuff, he uses like his hand, the nose, and throws him back. And he almost kind of like feels bad for a second about going after Ryan Gosling, because like, man, private detectives, they actually help people. I gotta go beat a private detective. That is what it is, I guess, And then he gets in there, he's like, this guy? Fucking this guy? Really?
Well, I can't. At that part there, does he get confused with the target that he's supposed to go after, or is it literally supposed to be Ryan Gosling? I thought it was because Ryan Gosling.
He doesn't know Keith David and the blue-faced guy are following her yet. That's the thing, because Ryan Gosling is following her, and he's not aware there's these other henchmen going after her.
Yeah, because that's what I thought it was. I thought it was like one of those ones, like when they first meet, it's almost like he misinterprets the right person. And maybe it was because Ryan Gosling's renting out the house and that's the address that he got. I couldn't remember if that was exactly how it went down. Even that last watch, I was like, wait a second. Is that what it was? Or was it? Because I thought he was tracking down pretty much another kind of like, almost like one of those.
She didn't know the connection. So when she saw like Ryan Gosling and thought the worst, that's why she thought Ryan Gosling was with those guys.
Okay, that makes sense then, and so on there. And of course he goes in there and he breaks Ryan Gosling's arm, and from this point on, literally Ryan Gosling's always got this like cast on the whole movie. So it's just that's their introduction.
Well, even the thing, like just that like part where like, because he keeps on like smacking him around. He keeps on trying to get back and fight, but it doesn't work out. And at some point he tries to get a gun. He like smacks the gun out of his hands. Says, give me your arms. He's like, no, give me your arm. No. It's almost like kind of cartoonish, but so funny. And then like he snapped his arm. He says like, you're going to want to tell your doctor you have a spiral fracture or something like that. And then like when he makes the snap, you just hear like the most high pitch like scream. Like just like that. Like I have that scream that like seared into my mind, like that part. Like this movie, like when Ryan Gosling, this is like the big Ryan Gosling heyday when everyone was just like, this guy's amazing. I'm like, he's fine, he's good. I like him enough. But then this movie came out like, oh no, this dude's fucking awesome.
Yeah, I kind of felt the same way too, because I remember it's like, okay, yeah, Drive was cool, and so on like that. The rest of the movies kind of, oh, okay, and then this one was like, oh no, he's pretty solid. Well, strangely enough, though, I can't think of a movie past this one. I'm not saying that there probably isn't, but it felt like I was kind of expecting more things like this from him, and then it's like, no, he kind of went back to he did like things like La La Land and other movies that I didn't care to go see. That was pretty much what happened.
I wouldn't mind seeing. I haven't seen La La Land, but it's by the guy.
I can't imagine you liking it for the fact that you hate musicals, probably more than anybody else I know.
Yeah, but it's by the guy who made Whiplash, and I heard it has like a surprisingly like not dark ending, but like honest and brutal ending. So I'm like, okay, all right, maybe I'll give it a shot at some point. Plus, it's also kind of like, I mean, I kind of don't want to split hairs too much. '60s musicals don't bother me as much. It's more the tacky kind of like I know a lot of they start off this way.
90s, 2000s, that era.
Yeah, like 2000 or like Cats or something. I don't know when Cats came out, but like that type of shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I guess kind of like stuff like like even though I don't know if this is what La La Land is pulling from, but that kind of like Fred Astaire type stuff. Like I'm not gonna go to my way for it, but I don't dislike that. It's more of just like the Les Mis type shit.
Yeah, no, I kind of agree with you too. I think that like the older musicals are definitely like you can watch those and you're like, oh yeah, I get it then. And then they get kind of weird after a while. And there's a few good ones in between, of course, but yeah.
I can go say I think Les Mis has a good story. I just hate the music shit of it.
Yeah. If it's just the original book that's not a musical.
Yeah, we're good. We're fine.
Yeah. They didn't put that music in the book.
Yeah. But to bring it back, I guess Russell Crowe was in that, and he was kind of thicker in that too. So it's not like he suddenly just got thick for this movie. But still, I think he's just like this big brawler, bruiser character, and I think he's perfect for it. And I'm a little sad they have never got around. I mean, part of me is like, I'm fine with one perfect movie, but another part of me is like, I wish they kind of like Shane Black and get Nice Guys 2 off the ground, because he's been trying to work on that one for a while. He had to make Iron Man 3, which was the most profitable movie the year it came out, in order to get this movie made.
Yeah, that's pretty much kind of what it was. And literally he wanted to make it, because this movie leaves off, I know that's jumping far ahead, but just speaking sequel wise, it leaves off like, oh cool, we kind of have an opening for like a sequel, and he wanted to do more. Like I kind of pictured this being like, this was going to be his kind of, in a sense, like his true Lethal Weapon, where he was in full control and he could keep doing it and so on, and sadly it's like he fell in that same category with Martin Scorsese, where they're both kind of a little bit jaded. We're like, these fucking superhero movies, it's like, yeah, I know I just made one, but shit, it's like that's all they want from us.
And to be honest, I don't even think it's like what all the audience wants. I just think that's what all studio heads want. They're afraid to make the afraid chance, because there's a lot of superhero movies that aren't doing as good as they used to. So I mean, there are ones that are doing good, or like, Thunderbolts is actually pretty good. I like that one, but
yeah, I did too. I finally got to see that, and I was pretty impressed too. I was like, oh, it's fun enough. They could have once again reeled the comedy in just a little bit. It wasn't god awful, but it was just almost there a little too often. But I still like the overall film, and I like the story and everything.
Yeah, the comedy in that one didn't bother me too much, but it was at the same time like it was like one of those movies like. It was one of those movies I did like it. I wasn't like, it's like Marvel at its top tier, but I think it's like Marvel at a good point, So, but anyway, sorry, keep getting sidetracked here. But like the thing is, people always want to blame superhero stuff and IP stuff, and I think I don't think you blame the audience. I think that there's room for both. You know what I mean? I think superheroes are obviously taking a dip right now, but at the same time, like, I feel like if you just put enough advertising behind it, or just pick the right date, because I hear nothing but good things about this movie. This is one of those movies that people like retroactively have gone back, like, dude, have you seen this movie?
Well, and I think so. And I'll say this once again, if you go back to 2016, that is kind of like almost like the pinnacle height of superhero movies. And I get it, for the studios, it's like, you put a superhero movie out, it pretty much was guaranteed to make money. It was like it was the safest bet at that time period. You know what I mean? And then it's pretty much post Endgame. Endgame is kind of like what gave like the pinnacle, and then it came kind of down. You know what I mean? Because it's like, how do you top that? So, but at this time period, yeah, Nice Guys was in kind of a little bit of a tough zone to kind of go out there, at least just for that. And I hate to sort of say it. It's towards the time period where cinema is just not as popular as it once was. And this movie's very cinematic in a sense like that. It's one of those ones where you got to be kind of all in on movies. If you like your Tarantino, if you like your Robert Rodriguez and so on like that, it fits into there. But I think that's the thing, is it's becoming, this is like the start where cinema is becoming kind of the niche thing. It's not the main thing anymore.
Yeah, I see. I know what you mean by the idea of like, because even the opening shot, it kind of lets you know, like, this is what I fucking think of LA. And you see from behind the Hollywood sign, and it's just covered in graffiti.
Yeah, just all beat up and so on. Though I kid you not, though, these are like one of those movies you watch this and you go, boy, being in Hollywood in the 70s would have been a lot of fun. But that's all I think about. It's like, it's kind of like the downfall to us is we kind of came to that point by the time like we were like of age for that. It's like, cool, all the good stuff of like the last 100 years is kind of washed away in a sense. It's like, boy, did we miss that train.
My only thing about whenever I go to LA is it's just like I have fun when I go to LA. I haven't gone to LA in a while, but I have fun to like the neighborhoods. I pick it, but just getting in and out of LA, so fucking stressful with all the fucking cars and all like the like turns with no lights or signals, and like so it's just getting in and out of LA. It's like getting on the highways. It's like, fuck this. But once you actually kind of get to like whatever neighborhood you're in, it's just like, let's just chill here for a while. We'll just, what bars are around here? Let's stick to that, like I can get around that. It's just when you just getting in it, driving around LA is like the thing like, fuck this, bro. No way I could fucking live here. But I'm sure like anything you get used to.
Traffic wise, it's bad, but I feel like, and it's not saying that there's not neat stuff. It's just I don't think it's nearly as neat as it would have once been if, let's just say, anything from 80s, 70s, 60s, 50s, 40s, any of those time periods, I think it would have been pretty sweet. And then it's kind of like by the time you get to like 2000s and 2010s and so on like that, it's like, it's cool, but now it's on like the tail end of its like, real hipness and sort of, now it's just kind of like, it's like kind of going to any city nowadays. They can be neat, but the internet kind of took away a lot of the mystique and like, all that kind of stuff there. It's like, well, I could find a lot of cool stuff without having to leave. So,
well, buying. I'm just mean experience of going. If you just wanted to buy shit, but I mean the experience of like going here or going there, I guess. But it also depends. I mean, LA's.
Yeah, well, I mean, like so many of those things have kind of disappeared as time has gone on too. Like attraction type stuff. It's, I mean, I'm not, as I said, I'm not saying there's not still cool stuff. I mean, I love going down to like the Whiskey A Go Go and places like that kind of still, look very retro and so on, and keep a lot of the fun going like that. But yeah, when I see it like especially in movie, I say old movies, but this movie's designed to be like an old movie. You just look at that and you go, boy. And I know it's probably turned up to 11. It probably was not nearly that cool in 77 either. You'd be like, well, yeah, it was cool, but let's be honest. Like they put all the great stuff into like the shots, and made it feel like it was better than it really was.
Or be living on the top floor of the Comedy Store or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Well, like they passed the Comedy Store, and this one's got Tim Allen playing there.
Yeah, like headlining, and then there's also like, I don't know. It's like it's kind of like this is obviously a less glamorous look, but aesthetically, I really like it. So it's kind of like watching like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Like, man, LA in the late '60s, early '70s, Manson murders aside, looks pretty fucking cool, And then you like this movie. I still, even though I'm not meant to feel this way, I'm like, this looks kind of fun,
Yeah, well, that's actually a good example because Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, that's like, I think that movie and this movie kind of they could almost like double pair together pretty well. They offer a very similar vibe. I know one's 60s and technically one's 70s. They're like a decade apart, but just like the kind of the feel, the kind of almost like, mixed match of like between a hangout, sort of kind of solving a mystery, and then also being able to have that comedy and brutalness all at the same time.
Well, it's actually, you're right. I think you're right on one thing about that, where I think it would be kind of work as a double feature. I mean, they're two very different movies. In Hollywood takes place in 1969, and this takes place, I think, in 1973 or 1974. So they're not that far apart.
77.
But at the same time, is it what? Oh, this takes place 77.
77.
Oh, okay. For some reason, I thought it was 60. Okay, my bad. Well, anyway, but it makes sense though, because 69, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood ends on the good ending. A hypothetical, what if we killed the Manson? What if the Manson family got killed and Sharon Tate survived? But really, the big illusion of like Laurel Canyon and all this hippie and love shit, and man, just follow your dreams, go to LA. All that shit was way more like thought of in the 60s, and then into the 70s a lot of it faded down, especially with the gas crisis and all that, and more things like killer bees like in the news and all that. So I think with all that piling in, it is kind of like meant to be this, LA's a little bit more meant to be a shell of itself from its glory days, from what it would have been just like a few years previously,
Yeah, especially because even like at this point too, you're kind of a post like the boom of like the new Hollywood type movies and so on like that. Because this is kind of that is almost sort of fading out. in just a couple of years from now, people will blow a bunch of budgets, and that will kill all those kind of movies from being made again, And even Steven Spielberg will fuck that up in a sense with spending way too much money on 1941. That's fine for him though, because he's like I got other plans. See you guys. I'm gonna go make some Indiana Jones Close Encounters. Even though I guess 1941 gets post that, but yeah, just even like all that kind of cool aesthetic and so on. I feel like it's one of those ones like, boy, it's like, especially if it was like Nice Guys, that environment, like you would just feel like it'd be so much fun. I feel like you could almost have adventures every single day down there, and you never know what they expect next and so on like that. At least in this kind of world, or in the Shane Black kind of vibe of it. But I guess going back into Nice Guys is they both kind of realize that they're kind of working in the same case in a sense, so they decide to team up, even though Ryan Gosling's kind of very hesitant about it, for this guy just came in and broke his arm the previous night, but the daughter kind of talked into it.
Well, I also kind of like his, like, you don't think like someone who's a real good physical comedy actor, you wouldn't. Ryan Gosling is not someone who comes to mind, but he's really good at that. especially a lot of his, because some of his stuff is almost kind of like Looney Tunes-esque, like when they go to the porn party and he's like you see him swimming after the mermaids, or like he slips down and falls. He didn't take into account how far down that hill was to look cool in front of that girl. So you see him like tumbling. The girl, she's probably on E, and she's like, hey, it's funny. He just kind of like walks off, so it's whatever, So
well, it's 70, so there's probably not E. She's probably on some like a bunch of other stuff, right? Mix of heroin and cocaine and all kinds of drugs.
Probably something, right?
Well, and it's the thing too, because he really can't handle alcohol. That's the other thing too. It's like he has like 2 drinks and he's like fucked up. It's not like he's really like, oh, he's 12 beers in. It's like no. He probably had like 2 martinis and now he's just like out there.
There's even some of the small. There's like that line, and like I'm going to use that comparison because I don't remember what he said exactly, but it's basically there's an episode of South Park when Randy gets pulled over by the cop, and he says like, "He can't stay and hold my beer." He's like, is there an officer problem? He gets pulled over. He says something. It was something. He like mixes up the order of his words, like one.
Yeah, he just switches it.
He's just like,
he just switches the 2. You got it.
He's like, tell them I'm looking for them, and they like just something kind of long like that. Like it was just like rambling, but it was a pretty funny scene. And just like, in the meanwhile, you got like what's his character's name again? Like Holland March, is that what it was? Holland March. And like meanwhile, like Healy, the Russell Crowe character, is looking around trying to be as professional as possible, but he can't help but at least slam one person's face into a cocaine table. But granted, that guy probably had it coming. And you don't tell fucking a big bruiser looking Russell Crowe in a Hawaiian shirt, move, you're in my way. You don't just do that. It just doesn't seem like good survival instincts, but like but then even like when they bump it, actually we didn't even mention these guys, the goons, even the goons to the like Keith David is playing such a throwaway part, but he makes it such a part that kind of stands out. And there's even the like cackling blue-faced idiot, that kind of makes it kind of memorable in some way.
No, yeah, those guys are really well written too, and I always love Keith David. Whenever he appears in anything, I get excited. But and the fact that they are just kind of, just some henchmen kind of guys, but they still chew scenery on all this stuff and so on. And I even like that part because there's a scene beforehand where those guys come to rough up Russell Crowe at his own apartment or whatnot, and he pretty much fights him off by telling one of the dudes to go check this bag because I think they were looking for something. And when they open the bag, it's one of those ones that you would take out from like the mall that would explode on you when you went through the sensors. So he opens it and it blows up in his face. So from this point on, that dude just has that blue stain just covered in it, and it doesn't wash out easily. You have to literally let your skin push it out. But I love like when he runs into Keith David like at like the party, and all I had the pictures, everybody else there's just kind of having a good time and so on like that, and they make this eye contact and they just start fucking throwing punches and so on like that. I'm almost picturing like people going like, did that guy just like turn and start punching that black guy for no reason? like he freaked the fuck out when they like saw each other. Like out of context, I feel like that everybody else is like, the hell is going on?
dude, man, it's all peace and love here, man. What the fuck? Yeah. No, but like even that, like going off that right there. Well, actually, the previous scene, I even kind of like is Keith David. Like, yeah, he's gonna like he'll fuck anyone up to get the job done, but he still kind of goes by a certain rule. And like when the other guy who's clearly new to it, who's probably someone's cousin or someone's nephew or something, and he's coming in trying to be a tough guy, and it's all blown up in his face, literally, and he can't do fucking anything right. And then like Russell Crowe is like, looks to Keith David, like, can you tell him to act like a fucking professional? Can we make this happen? And Keith David just gives him this look like, I don't know, man. You know, just kind of like I work with him. I get it, you know. And then later, even later, like in the climax, when like Keith David comes in and gets a gun drawn on the girl, Holly, the daughter, and comes over to Ryan Gosling's character, March, and he says, like, you fucking idiot. You had to bring the kid with you. Like, he really does not want to kill a kid. He does not really want to kill a kid, but he has to. He's like, come on, sweetheart, let's go. You know, so this thing of like, he really doesn't want to kill this kid, but if he has to, like, fucking goddamn it, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And that's the other thing that happens in this scene too, when they go to this, party to try to look for stuff, is the daughter shows up in the trunk and everything like that, and it's the 70s. So of course the
usher, valet.
Yeah, valet. I was gonna say busboy. I'm like, that's not good. Of course he doesn't question whatever that, there's just a random, 13-year-old girl in your trunk. That's not weird. It's the 70s.
The kids just riding by like on a bicycle, like trying to solve mysteries every other day here,
but she sneaks into the party, and of course, they try to send her back, but no, she just goes and hangs out. And realistically, she's the only one who's getting good information throughout the time because, she is smart and she is witty and so on like that. So she's hanging out with one of the porn stars and whatnot, and just doing that light questioning thing and saying, hey, I'm looking for my sister and so on like that. You think you could kind of tell me? And of course, she's the one who gets the information from here of like, okay, we've kind of got a lock on this. As, Ryan Gosling's drunk and, falling off the balcony and everything like that, literally stumbles backwards into finding a clue. And then, of course, Russell Crowe's just out fighting everybody, fighting Keith David throughout the place there.
Well, even that part with like they come across that body. First off, do you know who that body is? I didn't know this till I heard it on a podcast a little bit ago. Do you know who that body is?
Actor or character?
Yeah, the actor.
No, I don't.
That is Robert Downey Jr.
Really? Oh, that's cool.
Because you can't really tell because he's wearing like a beard and then part of his face is blown off. So you can't really see. And it's real dark
like on that too. So it's kind of hard to, see. That's awesome though. I love that kind of. That makes sense though for, because that was like the previous other than Iron Man 3, like the previous really big, I feel like Shane Black movie was Kiss Kiss Bang Bang starring Robert Downey Jr.
Which this has a lot more Kiss Kiss Bang Bang in it than I think. Because I think people often think when they think Shane Black, they think things like Last Action Hero or Lethal Weapon, and that's all fair. But when I think of like, I think Kiss Kiss Bang Bang and like this is what comes to mind usually when I think Shane Black majority of the time, by this point, at least modern Shane Black.
Well, and I do think Lethal Weapon kind of fits in a similar vibe as these. I mean, they're 25 years apart, so of course there's going to be a little bit more like, change as time goes on. But I think that one does feel because you think like if you say like Lethal Weapon and it's the guy who wrote Lethal Weapon is the guy who's doing Nice Guys, you go, well, I can see that right there. Or even there's that one Bruce Willis movie I think that he wrote with
Last Boy Scout, I think.
Yeah, that one kind of is in like a vibe like that too. I mean, it's a Bruce Willis movie, but like it kind of has a similar one. And I think if I'm not mistaken, I think that might be Tony Scott that directs that one. But I don't think Shane Black was able to direct though until Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. I think that's kind of where you get his full, in a sense, it doesn't have to go through the filter of the director. It's like now you're getting full Shane Black. I can't remember. There's the Samuel L. Jackson one, but I can't remember. Did he direct that one or is that somebody else?
That's somebody else. I think the only movies he's directed are Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, Iron Man 3, The Predator
4, which I remember I was so pumped for Predator 4 because it came right after Nice Guys, and it's like, oh, dude, he's going to get this one dialed in, so on. And then that was the movie it wasn't bad, but it was weird. I just felt like I walked out like, Predator as a comedy? That wasn't really what?
Yeah, it was a little bit of a letdown. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I feel like I need to give it another watch, but at the same time, I was so pumped for it because I just after Nice Guys, I'm like, dude, this Predator is gonna be so dialed in, the best Predator ever.
Yeah, he did a direct-to-TV movie called Edge between Iron Man 3 and Nice Guys, which I've not seen, but
I tried to look for that one. That looked really badass. Apparently, he wasn't able to. It was just a pilot, so it doesn't really exist. But it's a Western, and it looked like I saw I found a trailer for it on YouTube. Like it was like only a 30-second one or something like that. Mm-hmm. But it looked really cool. I always feel like, man, because it's almost pretty much it's a pilot, but it's pretty much, you could say it's almost a movie. It's like an hour and 20 minutes long, so it is practically movie length. So.
Okay.
I hope that somebody puts that up somewhere. As I said, I checked all the usual suspects, like Internet Archive, YouTube, and so on. And I couldn't find it because I was like, man, that looks cool. I was almost like, dude, we should do a podcast on this one next, but I couldn't find it to save my life.
Yeah, like I do see a difference between like say Lethal. I see the family tree of it. I see them being at the same family reunion. But at the exact same time, I see like a difference between, say, Lethal Weapon, just because that seems to be more action oriented, where these, like, say this and like Kiss Kiss Bang Bang and Nice Guy specifically feel more of like mystery dark comedies with some action in it. But like the last act of this does have like an 80s Lethal Weapon style shootout. Like majority of the movie, the action's quick and passive, but then when you get to the third act, that's where you have like two guns out, machine guns, fucking brawls going. Like you're in like it is one of those things. You do see these maybe you don't see them as much as you used to. You do see them in modern movies today, this day and age, but not like shot like this. Like this did feel like, oh, this feels like a 90s movie. This feels like an 80s movie right here.
Yeah, no, well, that's the thing, is it captures the vibe. Like, even though it takes place in the 70s, it's got the grit and grime of the 70s, but it feels like an 80s action flick. Or even, I'll say this, like that very early 90s era, before there was a huge changeover to, I guess you would say, the 90s era, but there's that kind of like interesting early like 90 to like 93 section. I guess True Romance almost kind of fits in about that kind of time period and so on, where it has a little bit different vibe than you kind of used to once it gets to like Face Off and Con Air and that kind of changeover, Bad Boys and all, like, that Michael Bay, John Woo kind of mixed match. It has that kind of action once it gets to that last part, where the beginning is definitely very noir, pulpy, like, in a sense, with the Shane Black comedy. And I think that's the biggest thing that makes it the Shane Black kind of style, in a sense, is that he does kind of rev the comedy up, but it kind of works, which is funny. Like, you would almost think that he only wrote Lethal Weapon 1, but by that comedy standard, you'd think 2, 3, and 4 would make sense. Of like, oh, you'd think Shane Black would be involved really in all those ones. And it's like, oh, no, he's actually not in those ones.
Well, there's just, when you say the Shane Black comedy, you just think of like, yeah, you didn't have like a kid asking like, do you want to see my dick? Like in his other movies, like, just out of nowhere. And then like, it's just like some point, he's just like, $20, see my dick? And he's all like, I already paid you $20. What the fuck am I saying? He just walks away,
I just love that. Like they're going to look for some information. There's a house that burnt down where there was supposed to be, there's this mysterious film is what's really going on. This film is like the big deal thing, and
has information that's damning to the auto industry.
Yeah, so it's going towards that, and we got Vicky Vale pretty much is our like somewhat. She seems like our main antagonist, but it actually kind of switches as you go through it and whatnot. And she's the mother to I'm drawing a blank on her name, Vicky Vale.
Margaret Qualley.
No, that's not it. The mom.
The actress. I forgot her name
from
too.
Batman '89.
Yeah, Vicky Vale. I forgot her name too. Yeah.
And since I'm on my phone, I have no resources looking at, but yeah, it's like one of those ones, like she kind of hires them and so on. She's like, hey, you got to find my daughter and so on like that. But at this point, they don't know that she's tied to that auto industry thing going on. But she's like city council or something, something big wig of Hollywood, Los Angeles area. And they go to this house that's burnt down. They think that everything's lost there. It's kind of this like slummy director who pretty much makes like mixed match, like, he's saying he's making these like very like PSA oriented, like fight the power thing. He's like, well, we gotta have some porno in there. That's what when you got some tits in there, that's how you sell it. That's how you get the message across now. So he just seems like a scummy, like one of those like scummy, like almost like acoustic guitar playing guys who's just trying to lead girls in, but being like, well, I'm doing a good job. I'm doing it for the people, And that's when
Robert
they run
Downey Jr.'s character.
Yeah, that's when they. Oh, that's true. I guess he is the director guy. That's right. That's who that body is. And that's when this like 9-year-old boy rides by on a bike. Is like, yeah, I know who this guy is here and whatnot. Like, yeah, he makes porno movies and so on. I was trying to get a job here. I got a fucking huge cock. You want to see it?
Well, that whole part right there, like, the whole thing, like, first off, there's the projectionist who kind of was sort of knew the director, the sleazy director guy, and his name's Chet. And for no real reason, Ryan Gosling's character Marsh fucking hates Chet. And I didn't realize it till like this time watching the movie. But like anytime he comes up in conversation, they think about something that Chet told him. He's like, fucking Chet, like just like 7 times. Like he just for some reason hates this like dumb burnout little stoner guy who really doesn't say a whole lot or do anything. He's like, fucking Chet, just like fucking hates him. The way like almost the way like how like Leo hates hippies and like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Well, it's almost like, once again, these two characters are almost kind of like Leo and Brad's characters, like as the fact that they're like the slightly older, where like the hippie stuff is just going to seem fucking stupid to them. You know what I mean? Like they're kind of, they've been around this whole time period, but it's kind of like they're just a decade past that, like an age range, so that like where it's like goofy and so on. And I feel like that's kind of Chet's just a typical 70s kid who's just kind of sort of
going with it, man.
Yeah, he's like, I'm in the film industry as a projectionist, and I fight the power on the weekend. I go to a rally, I do my thing, but I'll take $20. Fuck it, it's not that boring.
Exactly. Kim Basinger.
Yeah, Kim Basinger. There you go. Vicky Vale. My Batman reference, what came in there.
I was looking for her profile, and her profile wasn't looking the way I was. I just looked past it a bunch of times because I'm just like, where the fuck is she? Oh, Kim Basinger, because the profile picture just looks like wasn't what I was expecting. So as I look up Batman, like, right, okay, here we are. All right, sorry, this took a second. No, but like the whole. Yeah, well, plus he's always complaining. They're talking about like, there's the whole part where just like the part where like even the relationship he has with like his daughter's kids, is his daughter's friends, like how like he's trying to talk to all the kids at the birthday party, and there's this thing he has with like, I think they're trying to get across just with like him and younger people in general, and he's just like, okay guys, Jesus Christ, just give me a minute. And then all one girl is just like, you took the Lord's name in vain. Like, I didn't take it in vain. I found it very useful, actually, Judith. And then later, there's also like the scene, like there's fucking Chet, getting always mad. And he's talking about, this is what we have to look forward to. There's no more gentlemen left in the world, like that kind of shit, And then there's another example I was thinking of but it'll come back to me. Maybe we'll see.
Yeah, well, it's just always kind of funny. Yeah, he just like this guy, like this kid, almost in a sense represents the youth in his mind. Like he's like the fucking like poster boy child of what he hates in a sense.
Well, there's also things like, because he's like earlier I was saying, this movie zigs when you think it's gonna zag, and like they introduce kind of like this. I don't remember, like I forgot her name. Was it Molly? No, not Molly. Holly is his daughter. But there's this lady they meet who's like the secretary to Kim Basinger, and she's this pretty black lady, and Ryan Gosling is immediately like smitten with her. And then later we find out that after Kim Basinger is a bad guy, and her assistant's a bad guy too, full of pulling a gun on people, has a gun drawn on his daughter, and he has like, there's so many kind of like zig and zag moments just within this one scene. But the idea of like this, he sees her, he's like, this isn't you. He's like, I've killed 3 people back in like Detroit. He's like, yeah, I mean, it's not you on the inside. Like, she literally just said she killed 3 people in Detroit.
I'm talking about her as a person, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, he really just wants to believe in her, like she's good, like that. These are the people that he finds that he likes, but they're really like actually really bad people.
He just finds her hot, so he just wants to hope for the best. And then like at some point, like even that thing where like Holly brings in the coffee and like grabs the coffee and just throws it on her, and she's like, "Why'd you just throw cold coffee on me?" He's like, "I thought it was gonna be hot," and like, "Oh, isn't it?" She like turns, like slips in the coffee, and like hits her head on the side of the table, and like, oh, it all kind of worked out, So.
Yeah, I always love those kind of deaths in movies. I don't know what it is. They always just, when I see that kind of where it's just like, yep, and that's how they went down. You know what I mean? Like that's what took them out. But I do love that she throws the coffee on. I was like, well, I thought it was gonna be hot, but no. Like, and then Ryan Gosling like, it was a good thought, good intentions.
And then Ryan Gosling goes and puts a pillow under her head, just in case she's okay.
I also like in that scene there's a previous scene that kind of comes beforehand, like literally maybe like 20 or 30 minutes before this, and you don't think it's going to really tie in, but there's a part where once again what we realize why Ryan Gosling shouldn't be driving is there's one time where he is driving and you don't know, he starts to almost like kind of feel like he's hallucinating, and all of a sudden there's like he's hanging out and Russell Crowe's just there and he's all casual and he's like, you know what I always keep for extra protection, or like my insurance, or I think he asked, he's like you keep insurance? He's like, no. He's like, this is mine right here. And he pulls up his like pant leg and he's got, a little 6-shooter in there, like a 38 special and whatnot like that. And then all of a sudden this fucking fly comes in and hangs out in the back and just like smokes weed. Or the bee, that's what it's, the killer bee.
Voiced by Hannibal Buress.
Yeah, exactly. And so, and then of course, what happens is it turns out Ryan Gosling's like sleeping, and he crashes into one of those like water like things on the side of the road. And they don't think anything of it. You're just like, oh, okay, cool. That was a weird fucking scene. He was just dreaming and whatnot like that. Well, 30 minutes later, or whatever, we get to this scene. Ryan Gosling, the first thing he does when like that black lady comes with the gunpoint out is he jumps down on the ground, thinking he's gonna be all suave and pull out that 38 special from Russell Crowe's like pant leg, and there's nothing there. And he's like, shit, did I dream that? He's like, you must have.
He's like, yeah, I don't carry a gun with me. You dreamt it. Like, shit. But that's also like, that's the thing that's actually kind of funny about Ryan Gosling. Because like earlier I said, like, he kind of stumbles into getting the next clue or progressing things forward one way or the other. Like Holly actually did get some good information for Amelia, the girl they're looking for, try to track down. But really, when you think about it, he just literally backwards stumbles into so many important clues. Like there's the part where he literally backwards stumbles down the hill to find the dead body. And then there's him driving, falling asleep at the wheel. And that's where they realize all the money they're carrying is fake and just like cutouts, just basically setting them up. And then, it's not until like something near the end to where it's not till like where he looks at the, he actually remembers, he gets like 1 or 2 clues near the end where he was like, I got this, I know what this is. And even for a second, it seems like it doesn't. He's just like, it's gotta be this, it's this like that. And like, they're feeling all amped, like, yes. And they get there just like, oh yeah, they tore those apartments down like 3 years ago. Like, he's just driving back and they realize, oh, wait, no, it's this other thing right by it. Okay, cool.
Yeah. I just love there's like a guy just walking his dog there and just like answers that all for him after that.
Well, even like at some point they're like, we're going to go save this girl from like this shootout, from like this ultimate hitman that's coming in, John Boy. You're like, all right, let's do it. And they get there, and as soon as the elevator door opens, you just see a guy like holding his neck, bleeding out, and just falls down. They look down the hall, they see one guy just falling back, getting shot up, and they're just like, go back in. Like Russell Crowe just like looks stern, and then like Ryan Gosling just like shaking, trying to like hold it together, and like a guy gets thrown out the window. You see him go by in the background from the window of the fucking elevator.
Yeah, just like, yep, not worth it for that. We'll just get out of here.
Yeah, so I don't know. This movie, I just feel like I just can't sing its praises enough. It's just like one of those movies. Like the action is good. It's not jam packed with action, but it doesn't need to be. Whenever there is action, it's awesome. It's just like it's the direction and like their character. Really, it's like how many subtleties about each character you get in like this, what's just an action comedy really at the end of the day, but a very well made action comedy, and one that is really has a lot of heart to it. Because even when this thing is pointing out, because I don't think it's Shane Black being like shame on myself or whatever, but like the beginning, it's kind of an homaging himself, like Lethal Weapon, like the pretty naked girl on like. Because this kid goes like we're going back to the beginning for a second, but the kid has a nudie magazine of this girl. That girl's car crashes right through his house, and she's in literally the same pose as she is in the magazine, just by coincidence, but she's bleeding out. And rather than hold on her for too long, it just like puts a blanket over her. You know what I mean? Just to be like, kind of like, hey, these are people too, more or less. And even the idea of like, there's also some kind of like. Not to the characters, but to the audience. No, and historically, like, because we find out that it was like, this porn that was made has vital information that can basically destroy or damage the auto industry. The big three, primarily in Detroit. And then after all this shit goes down, nothing goes through. After all these deaths and all these bodies, nothing goes through. And there's this thing like, you can't beat Detroit. The big three will always be here. But just like, the Detroit eventually goes under. There's a thing of like, to them, it feels to me kind of like this thing of like, what's the point? Like, well, maybe not happen right away, but eventually it'll come around. Kind of like that. Maybe not as soon as we hope for, as soon as we think, but we'll get there. Kind of. Detroit is still around. Not, you know what I mean? Not, they don't have as much power. I don't mean the big three. That's what I meant.
Yeah, exactly. Because nowadays nobody generally wants that. Everybody wants like a Japanese car or something else. But yeah, no, it's kind of funny because it does have that big buildup. And like the thing is that they finally see that there is a print of that movie that exists, and they kind of realize that like, well, what are they going to do? Well, they're going to have a big seminar with all the car companies and so on like that, in Hollywood, and they're going to. And Chet's going to intercut the porno movie inside there that has like the PSA message in a sense, embedded too. So that's what's going to be happening. So they're going to see it while everybody's there, and so on like that. And, the news reporters and so on. And that's what's going to throw them all under the bus.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's where a big action scene is happening with the remaining, with like Keith David and the hitman John Boy. And kind of just chasing this film reel around so they can put it back on there. So yeah, no, this like it even kind of has a thing where it's like it shouldn't be like it should feel like a sadder ending, but at the same time, it doesn't feel sad because they kind of like found each other. Because like for a while, like Russell Crowe is sober in this movie, he doesn't drink, and at the very end of the movie, he's at a bar. It's Christmas. Now this makes it a Shane Black movie because it's around Christmas time, and he's just drinking like Captain Morgan straight from the bottle. And where they like, hey, we got an agency working together on Nice Guys agency. Oh, cool, whatever, And then he says like, oh, things don't all work out, but you're drinking again. He's like, yeah. He's pretty fucked up.
Yeah, just sitting there and so on.
Just the timing of that. What? Sorry.
Oh yeah. Well, I was gonna say is like, yeah, no, that's a great part right there and so on. And I think that's kind of the bummer though, is like, as great as this movie is, you see that there and you go, oh shit, this feels like this would set for like, you literally could Lethal Weapon this and have 2-3 more movies or something like that. And the bummer is that they never kind of got that second one going. And it's still not too late. Because sometimes there's a weird thing when you wait like 20 years and then you finally get your sequel. A lot of times those sometimes can feel like they might be kind of enjoyable, but you feel like it was almost like a little too late. I would have enjoyed having this, 10 years before, if not earlier.
I feel like there would be a lot of expectation for the people waiting on it.
Well, I'll say this is like The Accountant just had a random sequel that kind of pretty much just came out of nowhere literally this year. And I think that was 8 years apart. So
wow.
it's not out of the question, you know. Yeah, because it's like ones you wouldn't expect, and all of a sudden they're like, here's a sequel, and the sequel's super good and everything like that. So you know, and I feel like you could kind of still have a Nice Guy sequel come out, because I will say one of the few genres that's actually pretty strong still for the cinema is the kind of the action movie genre. You know what I mean? Like that's the one. Like I think about it, even just this year, it's like, well, there was The Accountant 2, there was the new John Wick movie, Ballerina. There was Mission Impossible just came out. There was the Jason Statham one. I'm drawing a blank on it. The one that was Stallone and Statham. And,
yeah, but I guess this one.
As I'm saying, is that there's just like that genre still is kind of one of the few ones that's kind of strong, you know. So I feel like it's like, dude, you could have another Nice Guys one. I think that you know, maybe in 2016 that was, because that was when superhero movies were as hot as, you know, they possibly could be, in a sense. You know, but now it's like, you know, those action movies have, I don't think they probably are ever gangbusters, like, but I think they just do solid every single time. Like that's all they need to do, is they just need to do solid, you know, just get enough people in there and so on like that. You know, have a little bit of spectacle and so on. But
I think that a Nice Guys 2 could do good. Granted, the ones you mentioned are more like a little bit of heightened reality, like John Wick and Mission Impossible. But at the same time, I still think something like this could do good, because I think people are getting some franchise fatigue, even though this would make it technically a franchise if you got part 2. I think at the same time, it's not a franchise we're totally burnt out on. And I think even showing something like you know, the movies that people really did, movies that did really good, that both critically and financially, like Sinners, for instance, you know, no franchise, you know. So I think people are ready for, like, even I say original, even though we're asking for a sequel, but something that's been long enough, you know. God, I can't believe Accountant was 8 years ago. I keep on feeling like that was 4 years ago, but like, yeah, I guess it was 8. Shit.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think that's what it was. Or at least that's what the characters say in the movie, and so maybe it could be off a little bit, but I'm guessing it's probably close to it. But even like there's like another one that's kind of in a similar vibe. It's more kind of leans kind of John Wick comedy, but like they're doing a Nobody 2 later this year too. Which once again, whenever that movie came out, the first one, that was my favorite movie of the year then. So I think if anything, it is a good time period to have the Nice Guys 2 kind of resurface, because generally I will say 2025 has been a really solid year for action, you know, action and action comedy.
Unfortunately, I'm not seeing Nice Guys 2 on upcoming for Shane Black, unfortunately.
Well, I don't think it is. Yeah, I don't think it's technically in there. Yeah, it's one of those ones, but you know, I think he probably backburned it for the moment, you know, so, but it would be just like, come on, just like, you know, or worst case scenario, it's like something just feels like, you know, just like, you know, kind of work around. There's got to be other ways you can self-finance this and get a couple other guys and so on like that. Maybe it doesn't have to be straight up to like a, you know, through the big studios and whatnot. But yeah, as I said, it seems like other action movies are doing totally fine. That's the only thing I'm just saying.
I hope he doesn't. Don't take this the wrong way, because I really like The Gentleman, and I like other things he's done, but of course. But I hope he doesn't become kind of like a Guy Ritchie, where it's like every so often I'll do something that everyone likes, that I'm kind of known for, and then I'll do like some random shit, and you'd be like, "Oh, he directed that? Oh, okay," you know.
Well, most stuff Guy Ritchie does, he's actually, ironically, one of the directors I probably look most forward to nowadays in like the last like 10 years or something like that. I mean, he does pump out a lot of movies because he'll put like 2 movies out a year like a maniac.
His newest movie was bullshit, but yeah.
Which one?
Fountain of Youth movie.
Oh, I didn't see that one. What, that didn't even come to theaters, did it?
I went to Apple. Yeah, it was whatever.
Oh, well, that doesn't really. Yeah, okay. I was like, I'm like, I haven't missed like. I thought you were talking about Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. I was like, that movie was so fucking good.
That one was awesome. No, that was awesome. Yeah. I'm just thinking when he does that, or he does like Aladdin, or like Aladdin wasn't even all that bad, but it was.
It was ironically one of the better of those like Disney to live action or whatever you want to kind of call it, non hand drawn type movies. But yeah, I always forget he did that one. Well, I feel like I think Guy Ritchie does almost like maybe the smart director thing, where he's like, here's the thing. you got to take kind of like a studio project and just kind of show up to work and do the 9 to 5 a couple times. Then they allow you to do whatever the hell you want in between. Maybe he has a game plan that works out in that way.
Mm-hmm. Maybe just I could see that because how many? I'm looking at his IMDb right now, and it does seem to be kind of like every few, to that extent. So
yeah, because I was just say the last ones I've just seen him because even there was a war
TV series. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that. I know there's a gentleman.
It was probably some BBC shit. Man from U.N.C.L.E. was kind of whatever. I remember when I saw it, I was a little bit more impressed by it, but Man from U.N.C.L.E. was kind of whatever. I was still kind of liking, like.
I still enjoyed that. I mean, I think I've only seen it once, but I did enjoy it. I'm not saying that like he's not like one of those directors where every single thing's like the best of the best, but
not everything.
Even if he put out 30 movies, I still think there's like 10 of them that I hold in very high regard.
No, I still like him. I just didn't want him to become, because after a while, I feel like on some movies his signature kind of disappeared. Like I didn't really maybe I might see a couple little slow-mo shots or whatever, but like Sherlock Holmes, I think it kind of starts with Sherlock Holmes really. Like Sherlock Holmes, I don't really see his signature as much. Then there's basically I just don't want him to become like, here's this like, I'll do this franchise movie once in a while, and then maybe I'll do something that you kind of know me for or like me for. You know what I mean? Not saying that Guy Ritchie sucks. I think he has some good movies. I just think that now I'm not as excited for his movies as I used to be, just because we might get something like Fountain of Youth, or we might get something like what was it? The Aladdin remake, or I didn't see that Wrath of Men movie, but I heard it was kind of whatever. So
it was still decent. It was a Jason Statham one. It was a little bit like toned down. It was not like maybe it's like it was almost being more of a grounded in reality action movie. I still liked it, but it wasn't like as high bar to some other ones.
Yeah, and I just hope that like Shane Black gets to do, as long as he wants to do it. Like Shane Black gets to keep on making things like this, or Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, assuming he wants to make more of that, because I even feel like even though Predators or the Predator or whatever, that one, even though that one wasn't that great, even though that one wasn't that great, like I did see some Shane Blackness in it to an extent, but like I might need to see it again though, because I remember I saw it and I was confused, so I might need to watch it again with like a fresh mind.
Well, I literally have it sitting there on Blu-ray because I wanted to watch it again, because I'm like, I feel like I need to give this movie another go. I'm not saying that's probably gonna be like, dude, I changed my mind, man. Dude, the Predator is fucking where it's at. But I feel like if I kind of go into it kind of now knowing what the heck it is, I think I might like it a little bit more. I just remember just being really thrown off in that movie. Like I was just like, what am I really watching here? Like, why is they have the goofy comedy in it, and I'm trying to watch a Predator movie? And then of course Prey comes out next. And you're like, well, that's a good Predator movie right there.
There's an animated anthology Predator movie coming out, and then there's like a live action Predator movie coming out that focuses on the Predator. So
yeah, I saw that the animated one pop up on there. I was like, oh shit! I'm like, I guess I'll have to watch that soon, because I'll check out anything Predator.
But I think there's another one coming out this year. It's called Predator Badlands, and it's from the perspective of a predator.
Yeah, I think I heard something like that too. So I'm glad that they're at least utilizing that part of the 20th Century Fox.
Yeah, I think the second one's actually going to theaters.
Oh, that's cool, because that was the only bummer to Prey, because Prey was such a good movie, but I felt like they kind of squandered it by just putting it on Hulu only. It's like, I think when that kind of happens, it's weird. It makes a movie, one, not feel very big, and even if it's really good. And then it kind of like landlocks it to like, well, if you have Hulu, cool, but not everybody has all those different channels and so on like that, So, and most people are too cheap to like even go, even if they really wanted to see a movie, they're like, I'm not paying fucking $10 to see one movie. Like, you just paid $20 to go see it in theaters. It's different, And it is true, it is different, but
it doesn't make it feel as epic,
No, it makes it feel small. I hate to sort of say it, whenever a movie kind of comes. So it sounds like that Fountain of Youth thing or whatever, that since it went straight to Apple, it makes it feel like it's like, it's a straight to DVD movie or straight to like video. Like, it's not that big of a deal. Don't worry about it. If you don't catch it, you're not missing out, kind of thing.
It did have Red Notice vibes, I'll say.
Yeah. So one of those ones. But yeah, I'd like just to see more of like the straight Shane Black written and directed. It's that thing that like I feel like he wanted. It probably is that thing because he's a writer from the '80s and then to the '90s, and I bet you what happened is when he saw Robert Rodriguez and Quentin Tarantino and all these guys, he's like, "Fuck, that's what I really wanted to be doing." Like, you know what I mean? I didn't want to be just the writer guy. I wanted to be the filmmaker in a sense, And then it's like finally, lo and behold, you got to do it kind of like almost a little bit too late, but it still worked out. Both you got Kiss Kiss Bang Bang and Nice Guys and so on. But like I felt like it's almost at the same time. That he's probably like, shit. I did get into it, like the party a little bit too late, where those writer, director, filmmaker movies aren't as easy to sell anymore like they were in the '90s days with like Miramax and all that kind of stuff. Your Kevin Smith and all that. A
very established name off the bat too, and I don't think a lot of people actually shame that again. Not to be a dick, but I think a lot of people are like that.
Yeah, well, mostly you have to go like, okay, the guy who says the corny jokes in Predator with the glasses? Oh, that guy. Yeah, that's Shane Black.
He also wrote Lethal Weapon and Last Action Hero and Last Boy Scout. And
yeah, because everybody kind of, once you say the names, they already they know all those ones. But I felt like, in a sense, he was kind of like, he needed to be almost in that Tarantino, Rodriguez, Guy Ritchie, Kevin Smith, like that kind of era. And then, because I want to say Kiss Kiss Bang Bang is like 2005 or 6. So it is kind of like on the tail end of that era. It's fine. It's like he finally kind of gets his foot in the door. It's kind of like when you have those hair metal bands and they got their first album comes out in 91. And you're like, well, it's probably really good, but this is the end of it. Don't expect another one.
Yeah. We're opening for Motley Crue, like on their Generation Swine tour. Like, ooh, whoa,
a little past there, Yeah, now you want it. Now you know who you want to be riding with is Godsmack. Believe me, it sounds weird now, but that's where the money's at.
I forgot about Godsmack until this very moment. Not gonna lie, let's be a dick. Now it all came flashing back, like stand alone. Which when you're like when you're like 13 and you hear that song and like Scorpion King for the first time, like, this is the sickest shit ever. Now I'm like, God, this is some of the lamest shit ever. What the fuck? But hey, people change, times change. But like, but yeah, no. I'll see anything Shane Black just about. So I hope he gets one of his. He's like it says he's working on a Doc Savage movie. So that's reaching way back. That's like some John Carter of Mars type shit. Like, oh shit, that like something that far back. All right, cool. Let's see what you got. Because like I even think that's kind of like probably one of like archaeologists adventure old timey shit, even though I like it. I imagine that's probably a hard sell because it's so weird. Because we've been watching, to go back to Guy Ritchie for a second, watching like this Fountain of Youth movie, which is basically Indiana Jones / Uncharted knockoff. I was kind of like, Uncharted by now is considered like, there's like you do like Uncharted knockoff, which is at the end of the day Indiana Jones ripoff, and most what people older, like younger than us, really give a shit about Indiana Jones by this point. Zoomers don't give a shit about Indiana Jones. So I'm just thinking like Doc Savage, like reading that, like, oh, I hope it's good. I hope you bring it back. I hope you do it, because I just even think like Uncharted for them, that shit's probably too old too. So who knows? We'll see.
Yeah, exactly. Well, because I feel like in a sense Uncharted was kind of made for older people anyways. That was like a game that wasn't made for like, it wasn't, even when they came out, I don't think they were made for 10-year-olds. They were made for like 30 and 40-year-olds is really what that game was like designed for,
Mm-hmm.
So I was listening to it. One of the guys who was one of the main writers on that talking and whatnot. He's like actually what we did is like, everybody looks at it like, oh yeah, it's a knockoff of like Tomb Raider and Indiana Jones. He's like, well, really what we did the research is we went back and we read all the old pulp books from the 30s and 40s that Indiana Jones and Tomb Raider are based off of.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that makes sense.
We went back to the original well source. Yeah, and the same with Doc Savage and all that stuff. That really golden time period of 20s to 40s that you have all those original, like almost like core stories of everything from Conan the Barbarian to John Carter of Mars and all that stuff that kind of build all that stuff. But like, it's kind of that sad thing. It's like the John Carter thing. Like, I fucking love that John Carter movie. And I just like even the John Carter, like the Dynamite comics that came out like in the last like 20 years or whatever. They're fantastic, and I really like that story and everything like that. But I totally understand it's like it's too old for the average person. It's just like old time, like and that's why I like always loved about Dynamite comics. Even though I feel like Dynamite comics are like they're literally made for like everybody's like grandparents, or nowadays I guess you'd say great grandparents, who are pretty much already dead. Like that's the stories that they write at Dynamite. They don't have their target audience doesn't exist anymore.
They're in the ground.
yeah, but I love that stuff. That's the thing about Dynamite that to me is always one of my favorite things. I'm like, I love all the old shit, but I don't know. I think as long as you confuse the audience is the key thing. You just don't let them know that it's old. You make it feel like, oh, this is fresh and brand new. What are you talking about?
Well, I do think it would be interesting if they do a Nice Guys 2. If like, oh, what if this one's in the 80s?
Yeah, because that'd be since 10 years. Why don't you do it like let's just say if it was made next year, like make it like 1988.
Yeah. Like I think something like that, But no, I would definitely, I love this movie. I want to see him direct more. It doesn't have to be like what we think of as a Shane Black movie, but I just like to see more of his work because just about everything by him I like. So, but yeah, I don't feel like I did this movie justice. I feel like sometimes there's those movies we talk about sometimes where we just kind of like, you like the movie and you could talk about this or that, but sometimes you like the movie so much, just all you can really do is just gush about it. And you don't really feel like you're really doing it justice. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean. Well, we've said this before throughout the years. A lot of times if there's a movie that's almost too good, it's kind of it's harder to talk about. Like if it's almost like there's no real flaws or anything like that, it's like you just kind of go, it's really good, it's great, I love this scene. And then the same thing too with comedies is, since this movie's pretty much a half comedy anyways, I don't know, those are always a little bit hard to
funny? Wasn't that
this
part funny?
And then this part is funny, and then when Russell Crowe does this and he makes a sound, you start sounding like a special ed kid trying to explain his favorite show to his dad. You know what I mean? So but I kid you not, it's one of those ones.
Oh, go ahead, dude. Sorry.
I was just going to say, no matter what, at the end of the day, I guess the message we're trying to get across is how good The Nice Guys is. And if you have yet to see it, because it wasn't the biggest, box office success film. Sadly enough, it didn't do that great. I know we saw it, but not everybody did to make it, worthwhile to get sequels and so on. But go out and check it out because it is so much fun from beginning. It's like one of those ones you throw on and you think like, oh, I'll just casually watch. And the next thing you know, it's almost hard to turn it off. You know what I mean? It's just like, even if you're like, oh, I've got to go to bed or something like that, you're like, it's so good. It's captivating. It holds you in real well.
Yeah. And it's kind of like, anyway, long way of saying like, sorry, this episode probably wasn't the best because we were probably just like, this part was funny. This part was good. It's such a good fucking movie, So it's like, but at the same time, it's probably more on my end. I'm not going to lie because it's late over here. But at the exact same time, though, yeah, if you can check this movie out, it's a fantastic movie. I think it's Russell Crowe at his best. It's Ryan Gosling at his best. It's Shane Black. Everyone's at their best in this movie.
Yeah. All the actors, all the choices. I mean, even just the little girl, the 13-year-old girl, she's fucking killing it. Even her friend, her dumb friend that comes over, just makes for a great scene too. Where she gets thrown up the window.
When I was talking about like how he has trouble connecting with the youth, and he says like, "You're supposed to be at your house. I'm sorry, my sister had a guy over. Your sister's such a stupid slut." I know.
Yeah, exactly. Well, she gets thrown out the window. Is she okay? Yeah. Oh, okay, then don't worry about it. Just only thrown out a window. But there's just too much good stuff in it. I feel like if you saw it, you probably know what it's all about and all this stuff. And if you have yet to see it, it's like, definitely go out of your way. It's one of those ones that just, I really think that I'd have to take a look at a list of 2010 movies and kind of compare and contrast between them. But I kid you not, I would say if anything, it's in my top 3 for sure favorite of 2010. But I think it actually might be my all-time favorite of that era. I can't think of too many other movies that I've watched as much as this one and really have just enjoyed.
From 2010 to 2019, it's no, it is kind of hard to narrow. I mean, it's definitely within the high end of the list. It might be number 1 for me because it is one of my favorite movies, but I can't think of very many favorite movies I have from maybe Into the Spider-Verse is in there. But I even made like this
that one. I didn't think that. I guess that was. I would have been like, oh yeah, that's. I guess it is that old. That's 2019 though, isn't it? I think
that's 2019 or 2018. So like Into the Spider-Verse, this.
Yeah, so if we looked at a list, there might be something, but it's going to be hard.
I'm having to think about it. I'm really having to think about it. There's a lot of good Marvel movies in that point, but none of those Marvel movies are as good as like Nice Guys, in my opinion. There's also a couple of like, I'm just thinking that's all I was also saying because we were talking about this was like when superheroes were like dominating and like basically like every Marvel movie coming out was considered to be pretty good or everyone was looking forward to it. But like thinking back on this, like, yeah, I don't think that any of the ones I can think of immediately, not even like Guardians of the Galaxy is better than like Nice Guys, really.
No, I don't think any of them, especially not in the 2010s. I mean, I like them, but I don't think I like them nearly as much as I could think of as Nice Guys.
I'm just thinking of the things that were dominating at the time, but yeah, no, I know what you mean, yeah.
No, Nice Guys, go check it out. Totally worth the watch. Rewatch it if it's been a moment. But other than all that good stuff, you can check out all the Old Man Orange podcast on YouTube and Spotify. Till then, I'm Spencer Scott Holmes.
And I'm Dunigan.
And we'll see you some other time.
Later, folks.